Hey guys, Button25 here. Watching the launch of NROL-76. It was SpaceX Falcon 9. This is the second launch attempt. The first one I recorded. However, as you may know, the launch got scrubbed or cancelled or yada yada.
You're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 rocket on the SpaceX launch pad, preparing for liftoff in just about 10 minutes from now at 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time.
Yep, already heard.
Good morning and welcome to the live webcast of the NROL-76
I'm sorry guys,
mission. I'm John Fetterspiel, a lead mechanical design engineer here at SpaceX. And today we are launching a classified payload for the National Reconnaissance
Another way of saying they're not telling us. I will tell you what the theories are as to what it is later on.
And final orbit are classified, and as such, we will conclude coverage of the primary mission following separation of the fairing. However, as we will attempt to land and recover the first stage, we'll continue to cover this secondary objective once the primary mission coverage has concluded. Now for today's mission, we'll be attempting another landing of that first stage back at Landing Zone 1, or LZ1 as we...
We can't say another landing because this isn't the reflown stage.
So we should have some incredible footage to share.
So the theories as to what the payload is it's either an experimental low Earth orbit satellite, because that's the only way they can bring it back, like the first stage, and it's also going to be the shortest first stage burn. And or it's a something going into a Molniya orbit, really low over South Pole, really high over North Pole. It's highly, or at least maybe it's not a polar orbit, but it's a rather highly, well, both inclined and eccentric orbit. And that's all we know, really. And I'm pretty sure, like, on the side of the fairing, I'm pretty sure it's Lewis and Clark. But, you know, I don't know that much about
You're looking at
that thing.
The SpaceX rocket on Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Now, this is the same launch pad that launched the Saturn V, as well as numerous space shuttle launches. And SpaceX first leased this pad a few years ago, and we started launching from this very pad at the beginning of the year. Now, some interesting things to see as you look at there. Obviously, the Falcon 9 itself is in the center of the image there, and it is being supported by the transport erector. You can see at the forward end of the rocket just below the fairing being the very tip of the rocket. The forward end, the transport erector is supporting the rocket. At about the T-minus 4-minute mark, you're going to see the forward arms of the transport erector open up, and the transport erector will recline back about 1.5 degrees. At liftoff, and when the 9 Merlin engines fully ignite, that transport erector will fall away, and the rocket will be released to deliver its payload to orbit. There are still some heritage structures around there as we continue to upgrade this pad for future launches. You can see some structures behind it that were there from the space shuttle era. And SpaceX continues to make modifications to this pad as we continue to look forward for Falcon Heavy launches as well as crew from this very pad. Now, that Falcon 9 launch vehicle does stand over 200 feet tall. It's about 12 meters in diameter, about 36 feet. And at liftoff, the thrust of that vehicle is equivalent to greater than 5 747s taking off at the same time.
That's a lot of 747s.
As we mentioned previously, we will be covering the landing at Landing Zone 1 for the first stage. You'll see that pad on your screen. That is where we're going to be bringing back the first stage at Cape Canaveral. And while that pad may look small or a little bit deceptive, that is nearly 300 feet in diameter.
I know this because he said the exact same things yesterday.
We landed at that pad about 16 months ago when we delivered 11 Orbcomm satellites to low Earth orbit. And since that mission, we've had 2 other successful landings, with the most recent occurring on February 19th of this year. And as I mentioned previously, today's mission is classified, and we will conclude coverage of the primary mission following separation of the fairing. But we are going to continue to cover that landing attempt after separation of the first stage from the second stage.
And I was actually curious to, like, once I heard of this, NROL launch, I was like, first off, are they going to be attempting to recover the booster? Because at first they was like, no, they're not, because barge landing, and then they'd know they'd know stuff, and the public would be able to find out stuff about the orbit, yada yada. But then it turned out it's a land landing, and also, you know, like I said earlier, the shortest first stage burn.
Stage 1 fuel load closed out.
We're just inside the 6-minute mark, and all systems are go right now from Kennedy Space Center, pad 39A. Now, if you tuned in yesterday, you noticed
Which I
that
did.
at about 52 seconds before liftoff, our launch director called a hold
Yes.
over the countdown net
Yes,
to
I
an
did.
out-of-family reading on a first stage sensor. Now, we have hundreds of sensors positioned throughout the vehicle on the first stage, second stage, as well as our fairing that help us monitor all kinds of variables from acceleration, pressure, temperature, and numerous other parameters. And while this particular sensor did have a redundancy, the readings it was providing for us were out of tolerance, and so out of an abundance of caution, we opted to hold launch and replace that sensor in question. That replacement has been made, and we are currently go for today's launch. Right now, just coming up on the 5-minute mark here, we are concluding moving on the RP1 onto our first stage. That is,
Super cool.
RP1 is refined kerosene. That is
Rocket
one of our
propellant one.
propellants for the mission. And we are topping off liquid oxygen,
Which
as
is the
well on that
oxidizer.
first stage, and we're going to keep topping that off for about 2 more minutes.
So you can see all of that.
We're loading
That's
over
fertilized.
1.1 million pounds of propellant on the first and second
You
stage.
can see that
combined.
mist coming off the vehicle. That's
Are loaded.
that's the oxygen
When it
boiling
counts.
off. Because the
Lower started.
SpaceX
Cape
used
Canaveral and the
very,
Kennedy Space Center
super
have
cool.
given us a go for today's launch. No issues to report from the range.
fuels.
We have been keeping our eye on some upper-level winds. As of now, though, looking into the latest balloon readings, we continue to be go for today's launch. We do have a 2-hour launch window.
That's deceptive. It only gives
We
you.
would have the opportunity to potentially recycle and target the end of this launch window. And we do also have a backup launch opportunity tomorrow at the same time.
Yeah, but that
Grade 1.
hopefully won't. It hopefully won't resort to that because I'll be in school.
AMTS 107.
And we have just started pressing up the first stage in preparation for strong back retraction, and you can see actually the forward arms opening
Oh, yeah.
just below
They
the
just
payload
opened, yeah.
fairing. And
You
then
can see
strong
them
back
right
retracts
here.
back 1.5 degrees.
And then it will retract. Yeah, you can see it start retracting now. Those of you who, like me, have been watching SpaceX launches for quite a while, you will know that the strongback used to retract quite a bit
TVC motions are
like,
good
to
on
the
our
back, to the very end, and then
second stage engine. TVC being thrust vector control, how we position the engine and guide the stage into orbit.
Stage 1 box load closed out.
And we have finished loading liquid oxygen onto stage 1.
Strong back lowers ended. Inclination 88.5 degrees.
And
Okay,
the
2.5
strong
minutes
back lower has
until
also
launch.
completed at its 80.5 degree point right now.
Vehicle switching to internal power.
Now coming up in the final few minutes here, in the final 2 minutes, we will have the terminal count auto sequence in the final minute where the flight computer will enter into its startup mode. The final check of all our sensors across the vehicle will occur before we lead into startup. And you'll see the bright green flash at the base of the rocket where our T-tab will ignite and act as the starter for our 9 Merlin engines. Those 9 Merlin engines capable of putting out over
A lot of
1.7
thrust.
million pounds of thrust at sea level. And with that, we're going to go silent over here and let you listen into the final minute and a half of today's count before on time T-0 at 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hopefully they don't call it a hold. Well, if they just... Although, as long as only a hold and not a
Doesn't stop on.
recycle completely to the next day,
Gas goes
then
on.
we're fine.
FTS announced FTS is ready for launch.
AFTS is ready for launch.
T-minus 1 minute.
VC verify Falcon 9 isn't startup.
Falcon 9 isn't startup. Ground side gas closeouts complete.
LD verify go for launch.
Go for launch.
Okay, that's good.
Stage 2 pressing for flight.
Okay, we're closer. On the left hand, they used to have experimental landing. Now it's a landing. And also, this is SpaceX's first NRO mission. NRO National Reconnaissance Office, basically a spy satellite.
Stage 1 pressing for flight.
15 seconds now. T-minus 10,
T-minus
9,
10,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.
0.
And Falcon has lifted off. Good. Yeah, you can see the strong back falling away there. Falling away, pulling back. Alright, the Falcon has cleared the tower.
Copy, go.
I think you're out. Okay, no, it just started. Okay, I was like, I think the Falcon is more than 100 meters off the ground. Yeah, it seems that's a bit busted, your altitude. No? It just... See, it stops at 2. Then it will suddenly pop up a bit. See what I'm saying? It goes 2, then 3, then 4. See what I mean? So vehicle's almost supersonic. So we'll be focusing more on the first stage. Oh, the first stage has done a bit less than half of its burn. That's space mission control. The vehicle is experiencing maximum dynamic pressure, which is when the most aerodynamic pressure is exerted on the vehicle. Oh yeah, I still remember this. So the next major event is main engine cutoff, which is in it's at 136 seconds, so it's going to be at minute 2. 16 seconds.
Chill has begun.
Back chill, that means they're flowing liquid oxygen, I think,
Falcon 9
through the
is
thing,
delivering
through the upper stage
the
engine.
National Reconnaissance Office's satellite to orbit right now. We just transitioned through max Q, and we've begun chilling in the MVAC engine on our second stage. Trajectory is looking good so far.
Good?
Coming up in about 20 seconds, we'll have main engine cutoff, MECO 1. That's where all 9 Merlin engines of that first stage will shut down, and we'll see stage separation.
And then the stage flip around.
Stage separation will be actuated by 4 pneumatic actuators on the first stage.
Well, let's watch this then. Miko.
Yeah, Miko.
And we have main engine cutoff.
We have stage set.
And stage separation has been confirmed.
Okay, I think, yes, the MVAC
See
has
the
just
first stage
ignited.
there flipping back.
Yep.
Use the
There we go,
thrusters.
first stage has ignited. And is performing the boost back.
That's one boost back burn.
And the boost back
Okay,
burn
yes, has begun.
of that first stage.
Okay, that looked cool. Okay, so this is showing stage 1 time. You can see the velocity being lost. It is in space now, it's past the Kármán line.
This boost back burn will last for about another 15 seconds.
So you can see there's the
We'll
onboard
use this
cam
to
and the
reorient the stage back to
next
Cape
camera,
Canaveral,
the
and
ground
fly
camera.
it back from all the forward velocity it had over the Atlantic Ocean.
And it's still climbing. Still getting higher. So I think this way they're just putting all their energy into moving the vehicle back.
And we also had a successful fairing
think the
separation
boost
of
back
the
is-
second stage.
Now the boost... Is the boost back still going on? I think the boost back has stopped.
As we mentioned previously,
Yep, now it's
we will not be
getting
covering
reoriented.
the remainder of the primary mission due
There.
to the nature of the classified payload on board.
You can see the thruster firings are a bit delayed
back at
on
landing
the
zone 1.
onboard camera.
And that's what you're seeing on your screen right now.
There we go, the great fins have popped
The
out.
right side is an onboard camera looking down from our interstage. That stage itself is 12 feet in diameter and over 100 feet tall, so you're looking down the length of that stage, and those grid fins also deployed, those grid fins guiding us back through Earth's atmosphere. On the left side of the screen, you're seeing our assets on ground tracking that rocket, the first stage as it's making its way back.
Okay, you can see the occasional thruster firing. Which you can also see on the camera on the right.
Boost back burn was a 3-engine burn. Coming up, we're going to have our entry burn, also a 3-engine burn. The entry burn will happen just after the 7-minute mark.
Yep, nothing much to say, really.
First stage has
The
passed
field
its
is
apogee.
slightly vented.
It's over 130 kilometers above the surface of the Earth.
That's at 160.
Those white puffs you're
So wait,
seeing are those...
It's only started descending now. Jesus.
Which we also use for controlling the vehicle in a guided descent back to landing zone 1.
I think this was a rather steep climb then. Or climb or ascent, whatever I want to call it.
Entry burn should be coming up in about a minute from now. You'll see 3 engines ignite at the base of the rocket. We use that to slow down all of the vertical velocity.
Well, not all of it.
The rocket is now falling back.
We're going to stop
towards
all of
surface
the
and
vertical
accelerating.
velocity with the landing burn, my friend. Careful with what you say. Okay, I think the entry burn is about to start. You can see the occasional thruster firing there. Let's see another thruster firing. Yep. Another one.
If you're just tuning in, we're watching the first stage as it's falling back to Earth in a guided descent back to landing zone 1. We have an entry burn coming up in about 15 seconds. 3-engine entry burn.
Alright, entry burn should begin about now.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And we've entered the entry burn startup.
Yep, entry burn has started. Oh my god,
We
that's
have
pretty.
Ignition of the entry burn.
That looks so pretty. It's so pretty.
This is a 25-second burn.
Okay. The vehicle is slowing down.
Entry burn shut down.
And we have shutdown,
Good.
the first stage.
Now it's just cruising down. Unpowered. Okay, I think it's just went trans...
In about 45 seconds, we'll have our
No,
landing
it's not
burn
transonic
begin.
yet. Okay, it's gaining
That
speed
landing burn
again.
will last for about 30 seconds,
And we land.
and then we'll have touchdown of the vehicle.
AFTS has the
That landing burn is going to take us from going about 1,000 kilometers an hour right down to 0 on the surface of Earth.
In half a minute, remember
Landing
that.
legs will deploy about 10 seconds before land landing.
That looks so ominous. It looks like a missile. Just, I will screw you up. And I think landing burn should begin shortly. Okay, we have no ground-based
One
video.
just passed through transonic regime.
Okay, and start of the landing burn.
Landing burn startup.
And landing burn has hit startup, and we have ignition.
Good. The engine is burning. Okay, that does look cool. And we should have landing leg deploy shortly. We should have landing... There, you can see the pad there. There she is.
Landing legs deploy in a few seconds.
Imagine if they didn't. There we go, landing legs down. And we're down! The Falcon has landed yet again.
Back at landing zone 1.
Oh, that was a rather vicious
beautiful sight
entry
to see.
there.
That is the fourth landing of a Falcon 9 at landing zone 1.
What were the previous one? There was the OG2. CRS-8 was the barge. CRS-9.
With that land
How many
landing,
CRSs has
that's
there
going to
been?
conclude our coverage for today's webcast. It is a beautiful sight, certainly, to bring back another first stage. We will be putting that rocket through some inspections and then getting it ready for another launch for a future mission coming up in our very busy manifest for the remainder of the year. So with that, we'd like to thank the National Reconnaissance Office, the Range, the FAA, as well as you, the viewer, for tuning in and watching us. If you'd like to keep track of our future missions as well as the progress of this mission, be sure to follow
Well, what
us
is
on
there to
Facebook,
keep track of? You're not going to tell us when you've
check out
deployed the
SpaceX.com.
NROL.
And if you'd like to come up here and join the team and be part of the crew that makes all this happen, check out spacex.com/careers. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you again soon.
So guys, I'm Button25. That was the launch of NROL-76. Bye-bye.